Welcome to Silicon Valley Asian Business Talk.
My name is Roger Chen, and I work at the University of San Francisco. My field basically is the innovation and a strategy, and I represent basically two centers. So one is, as you can see here, from the, we call it CAPS, University of San Francisco Center for Asia Pacific Studies, and also another center is the Center for Business Studies and Innovation in Asia Pacific. It's also part of an interview program I'm doing for the center. The name of the interview program is called the Silicon Valley Asia Business Talk, where we kind of interview successful Asian business leaders as well as entrepreneurs. So yeah, Stacey, yeah, please.
So I don't
briefly
know.
Introduce yourself.
So to begin with, I don't know how I fit in that description you just said, Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
You are part of Silicon Valley, right?
A little bit further up. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. So my name is Stacey Ma. I'm currently the Executive Vice President of Pharmaceutical Development and Manufacturing at Gilead Sciences, which is a biopharmaceutical company. My entire career has been in the biopharmaceutical company for close to almost 30 years. I spent over 2 decades in another very famous biopharmaceutical biotech company in the Bay Area, Genentech, and then Roche. And then after 20-some years there, I also joined a startup in the Bay Area, Sound Biotechnology, which is a cell gene therapy company, and built up a whole tech ops or manufacturing organization there from ground up. After 3.5 years as Sound Biotechnology, I joined Gilead in mid-2022, so at the tail end of the COVID pandemic era, and I have been there almost 3 years. So it's really a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about kind of the intersection of technology and biotechnology.
Pharmaceutical industry in new global trade environment.
But I have another question, actually another major topic that we are focusing on these days about a tariff. Huge changes, uncertainties, and a very volatile kind of environment. Yep. So, although we do not know the final shape of this kind of new trade regimes or environment, but we see some general directions. So, from your perspective, what's your view about this new trade environment? That direction is going to shape the landscape of the global pharmaceutical industries, and also how it's going to impact global companies like yours in doing business in the global markets. When I say doing business, means starting from drug development to the manufacturing to the sales, things like that. So I think that's a lot of people interested in that.
Yeah, it's the topic that changes every day.
Right.
So I'll start off with it's very dynamic. It continues to evolve, so I don't have the crystal ball where it's going to land. But I think I'll put it in at the high level. There's one aspect of the tariff, the trade sort of direction that it's leaning towards is, in our industry, how do you make the product and how do you distribute the product? It's called supply chain. It's no different than technology. Every time you make a product, there's supply chain involved. So in our industry, the supply chain historically is, because you're dealing with disease, human, it's about global supply chain for global market. Where we are heading towards is local supply chain for local market. So that is a big change for our industry. We're not in the food industry that you might have local flavor you need, so you create a Pepsi or Coca-Cola, whatever, that's for a local market. That's not where pharmaceutical industry is, right? If you have cancer patient here versus cancer patient in a different, somewhere else around the globe, they're getting the same product. So that's what global for global means. And now we're talking about, and the supply chain is very complex for pharmaceutical products. But what we are talking about is now, think local supply chain for local market. So it will have a huge impact. You see news every day about, what does that mean? Localize the manufacturing. Our industry is also heavily capitalized in making it, so it's a lot of investment. It's expensive, and it also takes time because it's highly regulated. Every time you make a change, every time you move the supply chain, it requires FDA approval. So that's what we're facing.
But that's interesting. Actually, there are two questions relating to that. When you say requires a lot of regulatory approval by different countries, that means it will slow down, it will take a lot of time to make those kind of change. The second is about the efficiency, the cost, which is, do you think that's also impact the cost? Because that's
It certainly will impact the cost every time when you make product that's specialized to a certain area, right? Versus you making the same product for everybody, so you can make bigger batches. I mean, think.
Yeah.
I'm not really comparing, but kind of Costco, there is reason why it's more efficient, and then a smaller store.
But I think that's a very interesting point. That's a huge impact, right? Because medicine has some kind of a social kind of implication for a lot of people, especially kind of a low-income people. So that's a kind of maybe complexity or uncertainty people need to figure out, I guess.
Yes.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of consideration that we need to manage.
Right.
And I'll just add on to, in addition to kind of the supply chain, the time and the investment it's needed, and then ultimately, higher cost. The other piece I think let's not forget is a lot of the changes, or at least what has been announced so far, to the federal funding, to NIH, to HHS. That also has a long-lasting impact. Because fundamentally, the basic research in biomedical space, a lot of it is through these academic, right? And then these national institution basic research. Our industry is doing applied research. Frankly, our investment VC ecosystem in the U.S. is also now focused on basic research.
Yeah.
So that is the pipeline to innovation in our space, and we'll still have to figure out how this unfolds. But if you cut basic research, there's an element of efficiency, no doubt. But if you drastically cutting these basic research funding, that dries out your pipeline of innovation. Granted, that's like way at the beginning of any kind of innovation pipeline, so the impact is going to be longer term. But that's a huge impact as well.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
That's a very good point.
Thank you for watching.